Chapter 6. The Warning. Madeline sat in her car with a death grip on the steering wheel, immobilized by shock. Her brain had not yet alerted her body to move, and all she could feel was the sting of tears mixed with sunscreen and the pulsating around her swollen eyes. Confusion saturated her mind, and the anxiety dominating her body only moments before had transformed into an overwhelming sense of anger and alarm. Gabriella continued to stand on the steps, waiting nervously, and her lingering uncertainty of what Madeline's reaction to her would be caused her poker-faced expression to change to one of unease. It was 8:00 p.m., and she'd been waiting in front of Madeline's building for hours, hoping she hadn't miscalculated and that it was indeed the correct address. And after spending 5 years living in a controlled environment, the French Quarter had been a scary first experience back out in the real world. Strange people had come and gone all night asking her for prostitution, money, or drugs. However, the majority were just heavily intoxicated persons, creating annoyingly useless havoc. But despite the fright of the circus surrounding her, Gabriella had never seen anything like New Orleans, and had to admit it was a mind-blowing place to wait. All the brightly colored old-world buildings with gas flame lanterns and decorated balconies full of people were beyond enchanting. There were endless strings of neon lights and bands playing live music in the streets, which she could see and hear from every direction. Horse-drawn buggies circled the block at least twice an hour, soiling the streets and crewed by tour guides who shouted out random historical facts about voodoo queens and jazz to their fascinated passengers. The scent of fried food and other culinary concoctions permeated from the many restaurants she'd passed along the way, with menus written in an English language she didn't understand. And it was all mixed in with a rich selection of elegant townhomes and apartments, with lush gardens and waterfall ponds visible through ornate iron gates as she walked by, one of which she was currently standing in front of. Well, she's obviously done well for herself, Gabriella thought, looking at Madeline's shiny new car. All her years of hoping, dreaming, and desperate attempts to stay in school must have actually paid off. But Madeline's finances weren't Gabriella's main concern. She hadn't seen Madeline in over 5 years and knew her sister most likely wouldn't want anything to do with her. Not after what she'd done. Coming to New Orleans was a risk, and she worried her visit could go horribly wrong and she'd be forced to sleep in the very place she stood. Madeline finally summoned the clarity for confrontation and stormed out of her car, slammed the door, and dashed across the busy one-way street heading straight for her sister. "Gabriella," she shouted, "what are you doing here? How did you get out of the hospital? You know you're not supposed to be anywhere near me." "Calm down," Gabriella said, surprised. This was not the soft-spoken, loving, and protective sister she remembered. "I had nowhere else to go when they released me. I need your help. Can you please just listen to me for a minute?" Madeline looked around and noticed a New Orleans Police Department officer in his cruiser eyeing them from across the street. Hers was one of the more residential sides of the quarter where citizens of means lived, and the officers usually stationed themselves in the area to ensure visitors didn't bother tenants. New Orleans liked to take care of its natives, and he was watching the exchange carefully, ensuring nothing unsavory occurred between the young doctor and the homeless-looking girl on the steps. Madeline quickly tamed down her demeanor. She didn't want to turn an already sensitive interaction into something volatile. She knew the level and style of antics Gabriella was capable of, and a peaceful exchange was not among them. "Unbelievable," Madeline said. Gabriella looked so pathetic just standing there, even thinner than she remembered, and so pale. "Just pick your stuff up and get inside. Last thing I need right now is you making another scene." Madeline unlocked the barred gates leading into her building and reached for a piece of Gabriella's luggage, attempting to remove the meager belongings from view. When she picked up a black computer bag, Gabriella snatched it back so snappily and hard the shoulder strap gave Madeline a friction burn on her arm. "Ouch, what's wrong with you?" Madeline yelled. "Fine, pick it all up yourself, but get moving." "I'm sorry," Gabriella said, picking up the rest of her luggage. Madeline scanned the street to see if anyone else was watching and then shuffled Gabriella inside. As they passed through an arched walkway and out into a lush and tropical courtyard, Gabriella was mesmerized. It was like entering a secret garden. The ambiance was overwhelmingly stunning, and everything was draped in palm trees and banana leaves, hibiscus and magnolias, and countless other varietals of flowers and foliage she couldn't even conceive of. The 4 stories of balconies lining the interior perimeter were lit up like an executive hotel, and the grounds were meticulously manicured and paved with dark red brick lined with Spanish tiles. On each side were 2 large rectangular ponds filled with koi fish and dressed with delicate arches of spraying water illuminated by blue lights. And the centerpiece highlighting it all was a grand 3-layer, 12-foot marble fountain mounted on a brick pedestal in the center of a shallow turquoise pool. It looked like paradise, and Gabriella was captivated. "Gabriella, let's go," Madeline said, snapping her back into reality. They stepped into a small antique elevator and headed to the 4th floor. "How do you afford all this, Belle?" Gabriella asked. "Don't call me that. And it's called work, Gabriella. Something you've never been particularly accustomed to. Not to mention the hefty baggage I dropped 5 years ago." "Well, so much for you forgiving and forgetting. Yeah, I wouldn't count on that." Madeline unlocked her front door, disarmed and then rearmed the security system, and then slid 3 additional surface bolts. Relieved to be indoors, Gabriella walked into the parlor and tossed her luggage onto the floor as comfortably as if she'd been there 1,000 times. But as she looked around at the generously displayed religious paraphernalia, she became unexpectedly uncomfortable. "Looks like you're still as superstitious as ever," she said, walking around the room, admiring the fine furnishings and running her fingers over the locks on the door. "And still not taking any chances with security." Madeline didn't respond. She didn't want any part of whatever it was Gabriella was selling. It wouldn't be worth the cost. It never was. But uncovering Gabriella's motivations would have to wait at least a few more minutes. Madeline turned away abruptly and walked back to the kitchen. Gabriella trailed behind nervously. Madeline stopped at a large oak bar cabinet set up between the kitchen and living room, fully stocked with ice, spirits, mixers, and expensive heavy crystal glasses. Without offering anything to Gabriella, she mixed herself a stiff martini, gulped it down, and then immediately prepared another. Her mind was racing, and she needed to slow it down. She felt stifled and couldn't stand to be in the same room with Gabriella any longer. She'd promised herself years ago never to feel sorry for her sister again. What is Gabriella doing here? I thought I was finally free of her. She seems so nervous and desperate. This can't be good, Madeline thought. "Look," Madeline said, refusing to look at Gabriella, "I really don't care what you think you have to say to me, but you're not staying here." "Fine," Gabriella said. "I expected you to say that. I'll leave if you want me to, but not before you at least listen to what I have to say. Our parents found me. They called me at the hospital out of nowhere." Madeline stopped mixing her drink and listened intently without looking up. She felt instantly sick to her stomach and her bowels tightened. "What do you mean they found you? How?" "I don't know how. Apparently anyone can be found. It wasn't exactly easy to find you either, but I did. But that's not all, Belle. They reminded me of the warning and told me this was my last chance to either come back to the family or die. Wait a minute. You want me to believe that after 15 years they've suddenly decided to come back and carry out the warning they've threatened us with our entire lives? I don't believe you. This is just another one of your tactics to try to weasel your way back into my life, and it's not going to work. Not this time. You had your chance with me, and you blew it. You spit on it. I put you away in a place where you could get the help and protection you needed, but that's it. I was done with you then, and I'm done with you now. That's not what this is, Belle. They were serious. I'm scared for our lives here, and you should be too. Listen, I've changed. I'm not the same person I used to be. You have to believe that. I'm sorry for everything I put you through in Chicago. That wasn't me. That's not who I am. Well, who was it then? You destroyed my life and ruined everything I worked for. I had to leave the state. I changed my name and anything else I could do to erase my past and save the remnants of the life I had left. She walked over to Gabriella and stood right in front of her face. You have been nothing but trouble since the day you were born, so I'm not sure what makes you think I would ever trust you now. Because I want to be a family again. I can't continue to live like this, always wondering how or when our parents are going to come back and punish us for what we did to them. And I know you still live with the nightmares because I live with them too. You need to leave. Madeline grasped Gabriella by the arm and dragged her down the side hall and into the parlor. Wait! There's something else I have to tell you, Gabriella said, ripping her arm away. It's about Max. Max? What would you know about Max?
He's dead, Belle, Gabriella screamed. Our brother is dead. Our parents told me he was killed in prison and that if I didn't want to end up like he did, then I needed to do exactly what they told me to do.
What do you mean he's dead? Madeline asked, becoming hysterical. You're a liar! You make me sick! You'll try anything to get what you want. You're lying! Now get your bags and get out! Frantic, she picked up Gabriella's suitcase and headed for the door. Gabriella reached for her belongings, pleading to change Madeline's mind. I am not lying! Why do you think I risked coming here? I know how you feel about me and knew you would tell me to leave. But our parents are coming after us, whether you want to accept that or not. I need your help! You're all I have left. Do you remember the last time you saw Max? Do you? You left him there in prison all alone with no hope, just like you left me 5 years ago. Now he's dead!